if you really don't feel like you're fully in, that's not fair to anybody because you're blocking those people and you're blocking yourself for what's to come or what's next.
Wake up, wild one. It is time. This is your season of coming alive.
This season is about waking up the parts of ourselves that have gone quiet. The ones we parked for survival, the ones we outgrew without realizing it, the ones asking us, sometimes gently and sometimes loudly, to pay attention. If you ride, you know this feeling. There's a moment when you realize the road has changed. The bike is still solid, you're still capable, but the terrain ahead isn't the same. And forcing the throttle only makes things rougher. Sometimes the bravest move is adjusting your grip, easing off, and choosing a different line. And this is episode 1 of that season. And today's conversation sits right at that turning point. This episode marks a transition for the Motovation and a meaningful one between me and my co-host, Laurie. We're not here to dramatize change or rush through it. We're here to acknowledge it, honor what's been built, and talk honestly about what it looks like when something good evolves, because life does. This is the Motovation. This feels funny to be like, my guest today is the Laurie
where do we
Joy
hop
Kingwell.
in?
Record
true.
scratch. It is true. For those that have joined us on this ride, the Motovation first launched in May of 2021, but the groundwork for that was laid well before. And at the time, I really was grappling with that, wanting to create something that felt like myself. That was the biggest thing that I was struggling with, which I didn't honestly fully recognize, but I knew that something was misaligned. And the journal had said, maybe a podcast, The Motivated Millennial, motivated without an O. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? I was a motivated person. I was talking about creating a podcast about being motivated, for fuck's sakes. But it needed a little bit of fuel in the ignition. And that fuel came in the form of Laurie. We were out on a dinner where I think both you and I ate like 3 croutons and the bill was $300.
Oh, yeah.
We were starving.
100, yeah, that's right, too.
And our beloved friend Jody was moving to the island at the time. And she's our little mushroom fairy. Kept distributing them across the table and a light appetite and a little bit of that fairy fuel. And the energy becomes a lot more apparent in what's in front of your eyes. And Laurie and I were clearly vibrating on a plane that deeply recognized each other at a soul level. And you're like, I just have this feeling we're going to collaborate on something.
No, it was at the table as I was like on the shit. I was just like, hey, we don't know each other well yet. But this is going to be weird, but I have a feeling we're supposed to work together and I don't know where or how or why. Like,
and then where, how, or why. Yeah. And I didn't either. We went out dancing. The night happened. And then
ate our crouton.
The treadmill, working off those croutons.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of a sudden it hit me. I was like, it's this. It's this. And quickly, it became very clear it was never supposed to be the Motivated Millennial, and the Motovation was born. And I think it's fair to say this project has single-handedly played a huge role in exactly who we are today and who we are brave enough to become. And that is kind of what leads us to this conversation, because we're both in a state of becoming and stepping into new chapters. And that means you felt a calling. So talk us through it, Laurie.
I need to talk through the calling. Well, even last year, I remember us talking often when I was in school. And I was saying about, the level of exhaustion that I was feeling on for the obvious reasons, right? You're working, you're in school, life is lifing. And then I said, I also have to figure out ways in which to make this work to a certain extent anyways. When I first got the kind of feeling when it came to, we always kind of pump the brakes too with our recordings and stuff like that in the summertime. And we were just starting to get going, I think, in regards to like, what dates are we going to record? And we were just starting to record again. And it was the first time that recording, even with exhaustion and tired and all those things, because we've been so tired these last 5 years of everything that's coming, and no matter what's happening, we always still make that space and time. And I always have the feeling of like, yeah, even though I'm tired, let's do this. And in the early fall was when the first time that I felt like more of a weight to it. And I thought, well, that's just because just that of like, I'm on the cusp of burnout. So like everything felt like it had a weight to it. And then once I was more rested, but still tired and figuring out what was sustainable for work and starting these new projects with actually one of our gals, Nikki, part of our crew, putting kind of our practices together to build out these programs to pitch to schools, which has been a big goal as workshops. And I had that realization when I kind of looked at my schedule and I looked at everything that I had going on and was like, you can do anything, you really can when you put your mind to it, but you can't do it all at one time. And it was like, and I constantly was always looking at my schedule over these last few years being like, what stays and whether or not I like it or not, what has to go. And it was the first time when I looked at it that I thought, this is where the passion of it didn't feel like a passion. It felt more like a job. And I also realized too, one of the ways in which I've been making sure to kind of like create space for my energy, my well-being, my alone time, all those different things, is not being around my phone as much and not being on a screen as much. Now, my job, especially in the mornings, is the screen. And then I'm constantly doing logistical work on the computer. And so it was one more time where I'm on a computer. And with editing, it's one more time that I'm on like a computer. And I'm trying to have less of that time, not more of that time. And that was always also a big component. And I'd love for it to be where we got to do it in person. But logistically, that's not our reality, especially with the difference of like, you're traveling, you're going to be moving to the US for a good chunk of the year. So it was like, with really and truly looking at what it is and what the asks are of time, what the asks are. But the hard thing about it is what's also incorporated in that is so many parts that I love. You and I getting to have our time, our little catch-ups that are built in that I don't get with our other friends because that's just not built into it. So we get those little catch-ups. We get to talk about things that sometimes they're like sitting in therapy, your own therapy. And so with that, and I think that was the biggest thing that you want to cling to. You want to be like, nah, I can make it work. All the things that you try and ignore that feeling. And that's where I really did chalk it up back in September to being like, no, it's just the exhaustion. But then once the exhaustion was over, but I was just genuinely tired at that time when I like knew, it was like one of those things where I recognized that holding on to it would actually be much more of a disservice to why we've done it, to both of our time and our energies around it. And that bringing that energy of like every time we were trying to schedule and figure it out. And if I was coming in at the 7:30 a.m. being like, oh, we got to record today, like coming in with that, like, oh, we got to record today. How is that? Because I didn't want to let go of the moments that were in the recording. Because it's one of those things, it's not like going to the gym where you're like, you're not going to really, but once you're there, you're going to love it. Yes. But like other people are involved in this. And it's one of those things that unless I'm kind of the mindset and the belief system of if you really don't feel like you're fully in, that's not fair to anybody because you're blocking those people and you're blocking yourself for what's to come or what's next. And if you're spreading yourself so thin, I'm only kind of half-assing everything because the energy that I put into the podcast, then that's energy that also, for better or for worse, comes out of the work that I do. Now, if I felt like this is where I needed to be and this was the place that like I only felt still that passion around, that energizes me for my work later in the day. But it was starting to feel like it's one of those things where it's just more screen time. It's more organizational time. It's one more thing when editing or all those different things. And so that's where I had to listen to that feeling of like how we've been doing it so far. It just is no longer part of that thread of continuing in that direction. My schedule is so bonkers that to even just like have a half an hour to an hour to actually talk about it was a challenge at that time. That in itself,
to be honest,
volumes.
This is actually the biggest conversation that we're having around it. We had to book a podcast about the podcast.
This is what I mean. And like that in itself is like exactly that. And so it was one of those things where, but it's hard because you like anything that you still love, that you're just like, well, your brain goes like, well, why are you doing this if you still love it in all these other ways? And it's like, but it's that knowing. It was the whispers, and the whispers weren't clear enough, but I didn't wait for it to start shouting by any stretch. But I did once it was like a conversation within that felt like a knowing. I was like, okay, I know enough to know that if you hold on to it further than that, that's where it starts to like really truly become something that then doesn't feel good. And then it gets really confusing because you start to then project different reasons of why it doesn't feel good versus it being like, well, you just didn't listen, that it was time to make that transition.
I mean, the last point that you make there is everything, because I think you and I have learned and moved through that lesson in several different iterations in our life of that. Maybe certain instances where you hold on too long and it does into the seed. And it is so funny when you don't recognize that that's what's being planted inside, how easy it is to say, well, it's this and it's that, and it's all these external forces, where really you're being called to something within saying, hey, we need to remove something to make room for something else. It's actually ironic because we preface this conversation with a catch up, and in a future episode I'll share, but I did my first ayahuasca journey that resulted in a very deep somatic purge. And the lesson, again, so obvious, but if you let something go, it makes space to create something new.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I think I was so glad that I was familiar with this lesson even when you came to me with it. I mean, I sent a joking text right away because we could only communicate basically by voice notes. And I was like, oh, it feels like getting one of those breakup texts where it's like, it's not you, it's me. You know, it's like, I've really loved our time together. You'll be good if you go on your own, or if this is just a chapter, it was a beautiful season. I was like,
you're going to find someone else. I promise.
And of course, when Laurie was sharing this with me, I was going through a really interesting miniature messy middle. And I say miniature because it was, a couple week period that I entered in the fall where I was sitting with myself at that intentional time as the days get darker and the season feels as though time slows, your calendar is a little less busy. And I was just sitting with this new version of myself that feels really, I should say more so than, felt really unfamiliar. I was like, this is so wild. I know that I'm stepping into this, but it's the first time I questioned. I was like, am I depressed? Like I felt so in this liminal place that felt like it didn't make a lot of sense. And my flow had stopped. Quite literally, the faucet just turned shut. And in the last couple of years, I've not experienced a mute button like that in a very long time. And it was quite distressing. And my focus on that lack amplified how distressing that felt, because I felt like I didn't know myself. And I started one night, I was like, your only job is to just set a time, 5 minutes, just write. And as I started putting words on paper, all of a sudden the aha clicked. And I finally, because I also had stopped, I didn't really have an emotional purge or anything like that. And then the tears welled over me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not depressed. I'm grieving. I was in a deep state of grief over the versions of myself that I was no longer. And it was really beautiful once I had that realization. And I started to have the waves of that move through me. But all at once, it seemed everything was changing all at once, including the deepest root of myself feels so changed. And so it was almost like I knew I was stepping forward into all these new parts, but everything felt unfamiliar at the same time. And so to have a presence that's been, yes, sometimes flowed in and out of what consistencies looked like, but another constant that was shifting, there was a brief moment of like, oh my God, everything's changing. Like it felt, there's like that fear moment that comes across you. Like it was definitely like a lot of mix of different feelings all at once, where I was like, nothing is the same. And like, this is just another thing that's not going to be the same. And that space was really brief, if I'm being honest, because of exactly what you just said. Everything in me, I'm like, I trust Laurie's intuition as much as I trust mine. And it wasn't an alarm bell. I didn't feel sick about it. It was a healthy, like, oh my gosh, everything's changing. But anything that's ever shifted or metamorphosized in our lives has always redirected into a new form that has served us, even when those middles are difficult. And they are difficult because you care and you have to grieve over something that was in its form. And I allowed myself to look back, and it actually didn't fill me with grief, but I thought about all the things that have unfolded for each of us over these last couple of years. It gives me goosebumps, actually. I feel it creeping up my spine because it is astounding how much each of our life stories have changed the women that we have become, the women we are becoming, and actively stepping into with a level of clarity we did not have to the same degree when we started this. And how fucking beautiful that, because this is living art, spoken word, paint on paper, whatever the medium, this is a form of living art, that we can visit those versions of ourselves and learn from those versions of ourselves because we have shared them and let them bleed through words along the way. And to me, I just feel an immense amount of gratitude, because with everything that life brought to you and to me, I don't know if I would have the lens of clarity that I have the gift of now if this had not been a part of our lives.
Oh, there's no way. There's no way I would. There was moments even too of like, because we talk so often throughout these last 5 years and around what it means, what fear means in the mind and body and in general life, and life being turned upside down, and intuition and mental health and all the things that we've covered. You realize how much that on the fine-tuned and on the tip of that prefrontal cortex of how these lessons and this belief systems lie, and then how much you're aligned kind of in your soul with it all. And last year, there was some major stuff that came up in regards to suppressed memories and emotions that I had since childhood. that came up with vengeance. And I probably would have ran from them for a lot longer. I think I would have suppressed them. And all I could hear when I realized, holy shit, there's no more running from this. I think I have to actually face this, was this other component that we would talk about. It was like hearing almost like our narratives of like, you can do hard things. This is coming up because you can, because you're prepared. That's why it's here. This, and you can run, but you can't hide. Like all the things that we have talked about. And I could hear it in real time. And it was the catalyst at which allowed me to have the courage to say, oh, I'm absolutely going to do this. There is no other option. There actually is not an option. Not only were the experiences of our episodes when we would record and we would sit and, journal out loud, essentially, for all of those years that oftentimes felt like we were in therapy in real time while we were going through crazy trial and tribulations of our lives, our whole beings shifting in real time. But then it was also the foundation that allowed me to tackle the biggest obstacle that I've ever faced to date, that I had ran from since like the earliest childhood experiences and memories that I have, that allowed me to actually go towards it. And I will forever be beyond thankful that you were brought into my world. This was brought into my world, that it shaped who I am today, if not one of the biggest things that shaped, alongside, because like so much of those experiences of family members with illness and death and so forth, how can it not shape you? But this is definitely up there as like one of the top things that shaped me in my lifetime. And just also having the feedback from people that have shared moments where that has been substantial in how they felt about things. When you realize how much your lived experiences are supporting others and their lived experience to live deeper, again, coming down to like my belief system in this world and why I do the work that I do, is like, I think we're all truly coming here and taking our strengths to like, and our lived experiences and helping others to like deepen their lived experiences.
The funny part is that for me, I think the biggest learning in this chapter, what I'm kind of most grateful for, is that it's the first place in my life that has felt so real and me.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a lot of time to do the opposite of what you're saying and just let it ramble with pure honesty and unfiltered truth. And not just from myself, but the women that have come on here and so bravely shared their unfiltered truth. There have been more than one occasion that someone has come on and said, I've never talked about this out loud before.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have come into this space. And I think that speaks to why this was built around our motorcycle community to begin with, in that there's this essence of safety with each other and a piece of our armor that comes down so quickly, because I really think it's like that. There is a piece of ourselves that we recognize in the other, and it just allows those stories to unfold. And to Laurie's point, the byproduct of that, of people being brave enough to be vulnerable and say the mess out loud, and also the wins out loud, because it's not just about the mess, it's about it all. And that moves people. And that's kind of what we've always said, even if it's one person on a day that changes their ripple forward, mission accomplished, because there really wasn't a static mission over doing this. It was that it meant something to us. And I think that's to Laurie's point earlier, where, she presented this change in alignment. And on the other side of that, I had to sit with that and be like, okay, what feels right to me? And I knew immediately, I was like, it doesn't stop here. It doesn't, but it's going to evolve. And already, you're going to hear a lot more conversations from our community coming up over the next couple of weeks, stories that make you feel way less fucking alone when we are going through these life stages that are inevitable, because life is the all of it. And if we can get to a point that we're a lot less fearful when it's proverbially hard, then we get the magic on the other side. We don't do it alone. That's the biggest lesson I fucking learned. I tried for a long time to do it all alone. I did it privately. I stuffed it down. There was no way I was going to lift that veil. I was going to show you whatever I chose to show you. And I was doing a disservice, because those in my life that have been willing to lift the veil are the ones that have moved me closer to myself. We become a reflection for each other. And that's a really beautiful thing. I want to close, as you're somebody that listens closely, what is trying to come alive within you right now? Also, the siren sounded like it was like a...
Really did. It was like lots of emergencies, lots of distress. No. I think the biggest thing that's coming alive in me is my dedication to my work more and more. It's like, it's just kind of coming to that beautiful precipice of having like the skills, the education, the lived experience, the groundedness within myself, all those different things to really create a support and change in a way that isn't just individualized, but is much more of like reaching a lot more bigger groups of people, a lot more kids, a lot more even just like families, and having more impact. The one thing I also have learned along the way, which is a really hard one for me personally, I think would be maybe hard for anybody, but is that this work means the world to me. It always has, like I just said. But with it comes a lot of sacrifice, because you have to be well yourself. And so I work, as we've talked about, this is no new news, but like I work on myself a lot. I need a lot of alone time to be well. And so you have to sacrifice a lot of the times that you really want to do the fun stuff. And I, as you guys all know, make time and room for the fun stuff. But I have to be very deliberate of when I am, and then when I just have to say, no, I have to go sit alone in a room. Like, and that is really challenging. And also of having a lot of boundaries around my time and energy. What's on the like calling for me is to be okay with people being frustrated with me because they're going to, and I'm used to bending over to not bending over.
She's like, I really miss that.
I just really miss that. I just let them give it to me.
The best I don't have my phone is that the last photo
bending
that I
over
sent you
backwards.
bending over.
But yeah, truly, that's a photo of me bending over. And I have some pretty good boundaries around like over the last few years and stuff. But like, yeah, with the amount of time that I spend giving in my work to like mental health, mental wellness, with that also then becomes a big responsibility to be caring for self. I'm always quite proud of people, my friends, when they are just like, you know what? Or like I had a friend the other day be like, I'm grumpy and I don't want to see people. And I said, hey, okay. I love this for you. I love that you're just like, I'm grumpy. That's literally, I'm grumpy.
I love it.
I can't hang out. I said, oh, all right. Love it.
I'm so fucking proud of you. I cannot
Thanks, dude.
wait to see where the season takes you. And I will always be deeply grateful for this chapter that we have shared.
Right back at you. Right back at you. The way the podcast is going to go in the direction, I think it's exactly where it needs to go.
For old time's sake, you need to just say the ending.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it made me teary. You know? Yeah. Well, that is your motivation.
I
love you.
I am rising. I am rebuilding. I am remembering who I am. Real stories, real women, finding their fire again. No pretending, no perfect, just the ride.